the tummy can actually put a pregnant woman into labour.
I want to go home.
We need to keep you still.
I want to do it anymore. Oh, I want to go home. No, I don't want to do it, please.
Would you rescue me when I'm by myself? When I need your love, if I need your help, would you rescue me? Would you rescue me?
Currently producing in a heart rate of 80, blood pressure 140 over 75.
At the Royal Melbourne Hospital, the ED is dealing with a rush of patients arriving with paramedics.
We'll go and see her.
It's a busy shift for Senior Emergency Doctor Emma West, who's getting ready for a new patient, a young woman who's been seriously injured in a car crash.
30-year-old MVA, self-extricated. We've just been notified that we have a young woman, a 30-year-old woman, who's been involved in a high-speed car accident, and she's 27 weeks pregnant. That's really worrying. I'm concerned about some abdominal pain or tummy pain that she's got, and that's right where her baby is. They've just rung back saying that she's got no fetal movements.
Jade was driving her husband and young son to the shops when her station wagon and another car collided at a T intersection.
Going to move all the way across on 3. 1, 2, 3.
The impact inflated the airbags, which pushed against Jade and her 27-week unborn child.
She recalls the steering wheel going into the upper part of the rhabdo, but she's now complaining of concentrating menstrual pain to the lower part of the abdomen.
There's a mark from something in your car. It might be from the bottom of the steering wheel.
Okay.
I'm going to have a feel down lower in your belly now.
It's a bit temperature then. It's quite temperature then.
Okay, all right. Having a car accident and having impact to the tummy or abdomen can actually put a pregnant woman into labour. And at 27 weeks, that's a very early time for Jade to go into labour. Take a big deep breath in for me. Fill your lungs up fully. Does that hurt across your chest?
Jade's 3-year-old son was unharmed in the crash, along with her husband Ray, who's waiting outside.
Well, I just jumped out. I just went to looking after my son, and we had an off-duty paramedic stop and a couple of nurses stop, so it was just running and drawing. So it's just been, I crashed and had a good bit of a cry on the way up here, but, hopefully she's okay. Boy's okay, so hopefully baby's okay.
I'm looking for bleeding with an ultrasound to see if there's any injury to her liver or spleen or other organs. And it's also time that I can have a look to see if I can see a fetal heartbeat, which would be fantastic to see.
Is she kicking?
Can't see. So I can see a fetal heartbeat, so that's good. That's good. She's not, but that's okay.
Is it?
Yeah. What you want is you want your fetal heartbeat. So the main thing we want to look for is that the placenta is okay, because you're your best keeper for your baby.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking for is to make sure
No abruption.
there's no abruption. Yeah, you're exactly right. Are you medical at all?
I'm a teacher.
Okay. Placental abruption is a really worrying condition. It can result in the death of the unborn baby. It's where the placenta moves away from the womb and it stops all blood flow to the unborn baby and all oxygen supply to the baby. We need to do some blood tests for your baby, darling. There's a blood test I need to perform that looks for any bleeding between the mother and baby. It really helps her obstetrician in terms of monitoring Jade's ongoing pregnancy.
I cannot deal with needles.
We won't do anything that you don't need, I promise.
Please don't do it. No, I don't want to do it, please.
I'm not doing anything without your consent, don't worry.
Jade has a fear of needles.
I'm not doing it.
She's becoming agitated, and Dr. Emma Patterson tries to calm her.
We need to make sure you're okay. We need to make sure baby's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to look after you, okay?
I just don't want to do it. Please, I didn't want to be in an accident. I didn't
I
want to
know, but we just want to make sure that you're okay after your accident, okay?
Why?
Jade, are you better off counting? Do you want to count?
You don't know what to count.
You've got great veins. You've got brilliant veins.
The blood test is critical.
If push came to shove and there was more risk in putting the needle in for Jade, I'd hold off for a period of time.
Please don't do it.
Jade's anxiety is getting worse.
Jade needs to have a needle put into her arm, and I need to run blood tests. I need to make sure she's not bleeding inside, and I also need to check her blood group.
We're going to look after you, okay?
When someone is really scared of something, in particular needles, they can throw rational thought out the window. I only need you to do one thing, which is not move, if that's okay.
I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go home.
Should we just try and think of something
I
else?
want to go home. I just want to go home, please.
Little scratch under the skin.
Please let me go home.
We will, darling. We will. All right. We need
I
to
want
make
to
sure
do it
everything's
anymore.
okay.
I want to go home, please.
Having a car accident when you're pregnant is really dangerous. We are the major centre for pregnant trauma in Victoria, and we see a lot of pregnant patients. Sometimes the outcome is really bad, and that's what I'm worried about for Jade today.
I don't want to be here at all.
Up on the helicopter pad, an air ambulance is coming into land with another car crash victim. This time, a critically injured teenager.
So the trauma surgeon is coming in.
In Trauma Bay 1, Senior Emergency Dr Sarah Whitelaw briefs her team on the options for treating the young driver.
I think the question is going to be, can we get to CT or do we need to go to theatre?
Dr Sarah has worked in emergency medicine for 20 years.
Ready to go.
Sarah juggles the demands of trauma medicine with being a wife and mum to 2 young sons.
There is no way, I think, that any of us could do this job without the support of our loved ones that accommodate the fact that we absolutely said that we would be home at this time, and then that didn't happen because something came up at work and we just couldn't leave.
Jensen, an apprentice plumber, is in an induced coma after rolling his car on a dirt road in country Victoria.
Unfortunately, he was deeply unconscious when the ambulance got there, so they've had to put a breathing tube in to protect his lungs.
Paramedics inserted the breathing tube during the flight to keep Jensen alive.
We know that his body has been subject to a lot of different high force velocity.
Are you comfortable going across onto the bed and then doing a handover?
We're really aware that that sort of mechanism can cause severe head injuries, chest injuries and abdominal injuries, and that those injuries can absolutely be life-threatening.
Got a blood pressure of 110, yeah, and then it's just sagged a little.
Paramedics estimate the young man was trapped in his car for 3 hours before a passerby found him.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yep. Single occupant driver of a vehicle today involved in what we interpret to be a rollover on a dirt road. The vehicle's rolled into a tree, heavily entrapped.
Do you mind keeping an eye on the amount of blood from the back of the head? And it's not actively bleeding out the back of his head, you don't think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The fact that Jensen was deeply unresponsive when the paramedics arrived and had likely been like that for some time, and the fact that he's had an obvious significant head injury with the cut to his scalp indicates to us that he's had a significant injury to his brain.
In the handover from paramedics, Sarah received harrowing news about who else arrived at the scene of the accident.
And his mum isn't seen to where unless she's coming in here.
The teenager's mum drove to the accident after getting a call. She stayed by the wreckage, her son trapped inside until paramedics came.
And mother was at the scene.
What Jensen's mother is going through and what she must have experienced being with Jensen after his accident is absolutely unimaginable to me.
Does he feel like his pulse is consistent with that blood pressure?
Got 4 pulses.
Okay.
I know that the best thing I can do for her is to do the best that I can resuscitating Jensen, but imagining what she must be feeling, it is absolutely overwhelming and horrifying.
I think we should hang another unit of blood because we haven't cycled the blood pressure for a couple of minutes.
We know that Jensen's injuries are life-threatening. It's about protecting his brain and preserving his brain, and make sure that he doesn't die from this brain injury.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. You're allowed to be scared. All right, you're allowed to be scared.
At the Royal Melbourne Emergency Department, 27-week pregnant Jade is in danger of going into premature labour following a car crash.
So we're going to just make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure the baby's okay.
Yes, but I just want to go home, please.
Yeah.
Can we do this later?
A blood test triggers Jade's fear of needles.
We need to keep you still.
Okay.
But then she allows the doctors to do it.
Hey, Jade.
Yes.
Can I talk to you for a little bit?
Yes.
Senior emergency Dr. Emma West must now convince the distraught, agitated mum-to-be that she needs a CT scan.
So you've got a lot of tenderness down the bottom part of your belly.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a chance you have an injury, particularly something's hit the front of your belly.
Yeah.
And I think it's transferred a fair bit of force down lower.
Yeah.
Okay. And with 100% certainty, we know that the best way to look after your baby is to look after you.
Yeah.
But there is a potential danger to Jade's baby.
I know I need a CT scan for Jade. One of the issues to consider is radiation exposure. Although there's no direct harm to her baby from radiation exposure, there is a theoretical risk of increased chance of cancer later in life to her unborn baby because of radiation exposure. So if you have an injury and we don't find out what it is, that puts your baby at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, with certainty. That's a certain thing.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a very difficult thing to explain to patients because they hear cancer, but that risk is very, very small. Another way of looking at it is in a similar situation, if I was laying in your position and had pain, I would want to have a CT scan.
Yeah, we'll just do it then.
Yeah. What's your husband's name?
Ray.
Ray.
Dr. Emma calls Jade's husband Ray for permission to do the CT scan.
The reason we want to do a CAT scan is there's a mark on the front of Jade's tummy. It's almost like it's where she's perhaps hit the steering wheel. But I do need to consent you about it. There is radiation exposure. I think it's the right thing to do, and I think we just need to make sure everything's okay. Good. So I've just been chatting with Jade's husband, Ray, and he's just happy for any scan, anything to make sure both Jade and the baby are okay.
Let's go.
I'm really still worried that she could have injuries that are hidden inside that I can't feel by feeling her abdomen or that I can't detect on ultrasound. There's still a real chance she has a significant injury or there's an injury to her baby.
Check that pulse again.
Over in Trauma Bay 1, Senior Emergency Dr. Sarah Whitelaw's team are battling to save the life of teenager Jensen, whose car rolled on a country road.
So we might just want to have a look with the ultrasound briefly and yeah.
Jensen is very badly injured and he is very sick. He has significant brain injuries and he also has significant neck injuries and chest injuries.
Dr. Sarah has to decide if Jensen can survive the time it'll take to get a CT scan or whether to send him straight to surgery.
We've got the binder on and we're getting our pelvis x-ray.
Jensen's blood pressure is improving from transfusions he was given by the paramedics, but he needs more blood to keep him stabilised.
Unfortunately, when we're dealing with injured patients who have had some bleeding and who are often cold, even people who have normally great veins that you can see from 100 metres away tend to have very small contracted veins when they come to us. So it's often very difficult to access those veins.
And we will see if we can keep him warm. So I think that's the next step. So give this a go. Do you want to see if you can give her a hand? So are you happy you've got another access here? All right, so we've got 2 access, so that's good. So 2 18 gauge. Are we all ready to go to CT?
Jensen's mum and dad are on their way with his 5 brothers and sisters who don't know how he is since he was airlifted from the crash site.
I'm really absolutely want to make sure that we are watching Jensen incredibly carefully. So that transfer process from the resuscitation room to CT is really critical, and lots of things can go wrong.
Short stay, bed 21.
Across the corridor, emergency doctor Scott Taylor is treating patients who've made their own way to hospital with many different complaints.
All right, won't be long. Cheers. That's one of the rewarding things about emergency is that we see people with cut fingers, rolled ankles, seemingly low-risk chest pains or tummy pains. We'll just head through here. Just pop your feet up. Just pop that up a little bit.
53-year-old Darren is having difficulty walking because of an infected toe that won't heal.
All right, so what's brought you in today?
Swollen toe.
Yep.
So,
on your left foot?
On my left foot, the second toe weak.
And you've got a history of diabetes, is that right?
24 years.
Type 1 or type 2? Type 1. You're on insulin from the start?
Yep.
Okay. Now, you've had previous infections in your toes before?
For 4 years.
Darren's telling me that he's had problems with his feet for several years now and has complications from his diabetes, which would suggest that his diabetes hasn't been well controlled. I'm going to take all of them down so I can have a look.
These are just on for protection.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. So where did you notice the wound?
The wound is not this one, it's interdigit. So
that one there, yep.
In there.
How's the sensation on the bottom of your feet?
There's none.
In both feet?
When I got this tattoo, I didn't know he was tattooing.
Right.
So I said to him, are you drawing something on? He goes, no, I'm actually tattooing. Okay. And I thought, oh, okay.
So long-term poorly controlled diabetes can lead to nerve problems in the foot, so something we call neuropathy. So essentially they're dead nerves which control the sensation to the feet. Yeah, it is a bit warm.
Dr. Scott discovers the sore is not just a flesh wound.
And the wound looked like it went down to bone, which made me concerned that the bone was now infected as well.
They gave me a special ointment to put inside the wound.
Yeah.
I'm starting a new job, public area cleaner.
Okay.
Darren is due to start work in a couple of days. He's been unemployed for several months because of COVID.
Which I'll be on my feet, so I don't know how long I'm going to last.
By the time the infections reach the bone, it's very serious. There's a higher risk of it reaching his bloodstream, and there's a higher risk of needing that toe amputated. I'd be surprised if he was out of hospital and in any sort of working shape in the next week.
We can hear you the whole time in there.
At the Royal Melbourne Emergency Department, Mum-to-be Jade is being scanned for injuries after a car crash.
All right, Dal, I'll be right here, okay? Yeah. She's really anxious, poor thing.
Starting that injection in a moment, you'll get a little hot feeling.
Is she okay?
Jade's fear of needles takes over as dye is injected into her bloodstream for a CT scan.
It's all right, just take some breaths, you're okay.
Yeah.
Nurse Sarah Thomas watches over Jade.
She was quite anxious when they put the cannula in her vein in her hand. When we get stressed out, it's not good for the baby. We want to just keep her nice and calm and make sure she feels comfortable.
Jade is complaining of pain in her lower abdomen. It's likely where her seatbelt was sitting across her pregnant belly. So there's a lot of different injuries that could occur there.
We've got you, it's okay. And your hubby will come in, he can hold your hand.
Jade's worried partner Ray has been waiting to be reunited with her.
He's just in here.
Hello.
Hey. Found him. He's bought you a beautiful big pillow.
Yeah, I'm just running a bloody adrenaline still. Boy's okay.
The couple has to wait for the results of the CT scan, and there's still a risk Jade could go into premature labour in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, we were just going down to the shops and just minding our own business, and then, the way these things happen, they just, it just happens. The chap made sure he had all his mats, so he sleeps well tonight.
He's all right, Ray. I didn't get a calf yet, because otherwise I won't calf yet. All right?
She needs an assessment by the obstetric team to make sure that she's going to be okay. So hopefully things stay well for Jade.
Can I just scoot around?
Yeah, sorry.
You're right, I'll swap sides with you. You're right?
Yeah.
You okay?
Ray, you need to settle down.
She's okay.
It's been a big day.
Yeah.
All right, short sleeve, gotta be there. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
In the ED, emergency doctor Michelle Thornhill is on the move. A busy shift is also a good cardio workout.
On average, I do check with my counter here and I do somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 steps for the shift. Instead of picking up the phone and giving someone a call, I'll just make the walk over and talk to them then. Every step counts.
Dr. Michelle is on her way to Resus Bay 1 to see a trail bike rider who crashed face first onto a dirt track.
He's taken a chunk off the front of his tongue with his teeth, I think.
He's taken...
Bitten a chunk off his tongue.
Right. So if you think of the tongue as a really tough, strong muscle, and the amount of force that you would need to actually take a piece off would be quite significant. I'm Michelle. Tell me what you remember.
I'm going up the jump, and then the back of the bike's just going up.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, nah, this ain't happening. And I've somehow then stacked it, and then
right.
I'm on the ground with the helmet on, I'm moaning, I'm going, get the helmet off, get the helmet off.
As his teeth bit down, it just would have clenched down and gone straight through the tongue. Some pretty sharp teeth he must have there. Oh yeah, you have taken a piece too.
New party trick I got, hello.
Oh my gosh. Really, it's just the tip. Just lift up for me. Good. I would guess it's about a 2 centimeter chunk. So almost a third of the front portion of his tongue that was missing. Okay, so the lip looks okay. I imagine there would have been quite a bit of blood initially at the scene. But looking at him now, there isn't much blood there. It's all sealed off. What about your tongue? Was that a bit chewy?
Oh, that was a bloody surprise. That was a Kinder surprise right there.
Oh, dear. There is a slight possibility that he's swallowed it. No one knows where it is. I imagine it's lying on a dirt track somewhere. Who knows, probably being eaten by some ants. Have you seen this?
It's terrible.
Yeah. So it looked like you hit face first and went by.
I know. I could feel it in my jaw,
Right.
face first. But it's messed up because I was doing some great jumps and having a bowl, first time on the track.
The tongue has so many different nerve endings in there. So he would have done significant damage to those, and it would just be raw nerve endings that are just extremely painful.
The 23-year-old daredevil is also covered in grazes.
Yeah, you've lost a bit of skin there.
Really hurt.
That's why.
Yeah, on the knuckle.
Oh, definitely on the shoulder. What were you wearing?
A shirt.
Just a t-shirt?
A long sleeve shirt.
Okay.
But no padding.
Yeah.
None of the proper gear.
Okay.
The damage to his helmet is telling Dr. Michelle Claney may have injured more than just his tongue.
My first concern is this guy's actually smashed his head on the floor after he has fallen off his motorbike, which means he's at high risk of bleeding within the head, of damage to his C-spine, and then anything else could be damaged after that below the neck. All right, I'm just gonna push on your hips.
Yeah.
In Royal Melbourne Emergency, 23-year-old Claney has bitten off the tip of his tongue in a trail bike crash.
You can see right there, that's the blood. That was obviously really red at the time. It's all here too. You can see, yeah, the damage. Your face is right here. With that impact, it broke the visor off.
Emergency doctor Michelle Thornhill is checking for other injuries with an ultrasound.
How's your day then?
Pretty good. Quite relaxing until I got to work.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Tell me about this name of yours, Claney. Where's it? What's the origin of that?
It's a Scottish origin.
Okay. Do you know what it means?
Yeah, I found out. So it means son of Red Warrior. So there you go.
Sun Red Warrior.
Son of Red Warrior.
Son of Red Warrior.
Yeah.
All right. I think it does suit him. He seems to be a bit of a fighter. He is able to soldier on in the face of adversity.
Claney's off for x-rays to check for any other damage caused by his high-action stunt.
So we were x-raying that hand, that thigh, and then the normal chest and pelvis.
Okay.
Remarkably, he has no internal injuries or broken bones. The chatty adventure seeker may have lost the tip of his tongue, but it hasn't blunted his wit.
Hello there. Did you have something you wanted to tell me?
Hey, Michelle. Yeah, so, I've had a think about it. And I wanted to have a great day on the motorbike.
Yes.
But I bit off more than I can chew.
Oh, my gosh. So, tell me, you're not trying to make a living out of being a comedian, right?
Nah, not yet.
Okay. I do think some of his jokes are funny, and I took most of what he said tongue-in-cheek. What I'm going to do is get this collar off your neck, and then we can sit you up. He will always have a small defect in the tongue. I think it'll be hardly noticeable as time goes by. All right, so really it's just the tip. Just lift up for me. Good. And let's see. You can bring the tongue back inside. I just want to have a look in here. The tongue has an ability, like everything in the mouth, it heals itself pretty quickly. It's not going to regrow, but it will seal off.
I like to push the boundaries, really step it up each time. I'm happy with that, but yeah, today ended up a bit nastier than the other days.
I think he'll do just fine without that little piece of tongue.
In life, sometimes you just got to cop it on the chin. Yeah, that's a good one.
This has been a very, very good wake-up call.
Across the hallway, 53-year-old diabetic Darren has an ulcerated toe, and there's a danger the infection could spread through his body.
There have been some pretty horrific wounds, like half this toe was basically all gone and you can almost see bone on it, but it's been a battle. I wouldn't wish diabetes on anyone.
Emergency Dr. Scott Taylor believes Darren's toe may have to be amputated to stop the infection.
Did you break this foot?
No, that's
just from the Charcot.
That's just from the Charcot. It's now flat and...
Charcot foot is a complication of diabetes as a result of the nerves in the feet not working properly. Patients lose the structure of their feet.
I'm having difficulty walking sometimes, but it's not... I'm never going to jog again, I know that. But I've been having some issues with pain.
Yeah.
So sometimes when there's no infection, I just get sore in here because I've no longer got the arch and I'm finding it difficult to walk.
Yeah.
But I think, as you can see, there's a huge lump there. It's just all flat now. So the end game is I will probably never be able to walk. I don't know how long it's going to take. Enjoy life now while you can.
Darren's world collapsed when he lost his job because of COVID. The financial stress has taken its toll.
I have been suffering panic attacks for the last year and a half.
Yep.
But I think that was just work-related. But I had my last panic attack. I thought I woke up, I was sick, and I thought I had COVID. So I came in here and got a test, and it came back negative.
Okay.
Now, he may not be able to start a new job in a couple of days.
There's a possibility that this infection may have spread deeper than just the skin, which is why so look, an amputation of that toe at some point might be on the cards.
Amputation of Darren's infected toe is a last resort, but it may be the only way to stop the 53-year-old's health from a downward spiral.
If an infection reaches your bloodstream, it can seed to other organs. Bacteria can stick to your heart and then get fired off to other areas of the body like the brain, the kidneys, the gut. That's a condition that we call septicemia, which is very, very dangerous.
If it saves a leg, getting rid of my toe is not going to kill me, you know what I mean? But I'd rather lose a toe than lose a leg if that's what it takes.
Critically injured teenager Jensen is being taken for a scan of his head. because doctors believe a car crash has caused brain damage.
Thank you for getting that access.
Jensen has been stabilised for the move, but senior emergency doctor Sarah Whitelaw knows his condition can deteriorate quickly.
When we go to CT, I'm very aware that there's a period of time when I can't be in the room with Jensen. I'm aware that his outcome is going to depend on the oxygen getting to his brain. It's important to be watching that all of the time. There's not a single, set of seconds or minutes that you can afford to turn away from that.
Jensen's mother is driving 300 kilometres to the hospital after last seeing her son at the crash scene where he was clinging to life.
The CT tells us that Jensen doesn't have the type of bleed in his brain that needs to go directly to the operating theatre and drain some of that blood out. But it does show us that Jensen's brain injury is likely significant. He has signs of injury across almost the entirety of his brain, and it does look like there's already some swelling developing.
The next step for Dr. Sarah is to talk to the family.
It really is difficult to give news to the family in this situation because it is just impossible to predict how bad the head injury is.
Jensen's dad, who works in Melbourne, is the first to arrive and he's waiting in the family room to hear from Sarah.
That walk never gets any easier. I find it one of the most difficult parts of the job.
I'm Jensen's dad.
I'm Sarah, I'm Dr. Whitelaw, I'm one of the emergency doctors here. He's had that accident at some stage this morning, and I do think he's got a significant head injury. At the moment, his heart and his lungs and his kidneys, all his other organs are working very well.
Son, please, I need to. Please say he's such a lovely boy.
Yeah. We are absolutely doing every single thing that we can, and we will keep doing that.
So Steve said to me, please save my son. That is heartbreaking to hear because I can't guarantee him that we can save his son's life. It's important that I help Steve to deal with the information that I'm about to give him, not make him promises that I can't keep. But that's really heartbreaking.
I'm just trying to take one day at a time with this foot.
In Royal Melbourne Emergency, Darren's infected toe may have to be amputated.
When I got diagnosed, they didn't tell me much. It was just, watch what you eat, have 10 units of insulin, and I thought that was it. It's a lot to take in all in one go. It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but yeah. Haven't cried, but it's been close a few times, so.
Emergency Dr. Scott Taylor is assessing Darren's overall diabetic health.
All right, now I'm just going to feel behind your knee. Can you straighten out just a smidge for me? Okay, I can't feel any lymph nodes in there. Is it sore through there at all?
I think there's a number of reasons that people can have poor diabetic control. I completely understand people that don't want to poke themselves with needles 3 or 4 times a day to check their sugars when they could realistically spare themselves from that pain. It's easy to understand why people might neglect their diabetes because it is rather inconvenient.
Dr. Scott's waiting on test results, which will tell him if Darren's ulcerated wound is bone deep and spreading through his circulatory system. If so, he'll need his toe amputated.
You've already sort of alluded to the fact that an amputation of that toe at some point might be on the cards.
Yeah, if it's going to cause me prolonged problems, I'd rather it gone than have to...
Yeah.
After putting up with infected sores on his feet for years, Darren accepts he may need an amputation.
I hope for his sake it doesn't come to that. I'm not sure whether he fully appreciates the consequences that might come with that.
The next step is to get Darren seen by the unit that we call the diabetic foot unit, and an assessment by the diabetes doctors and the vascular surgeons as to whether or not he needs an amputation while he's in hospital.
Darren's first job since the COVID crisis is in jeopardy, especially if his toe is amputated.
Be in hospital for at least a week, as we initially thought. You know, that toe will most likely come off at some point during his stay this time around. And I think the likelihood of him getting back to work in the next week or even in the next couple of weeks is pretty small.
I'll suture up the back where the fracture is.
Okay.
Back in Trauma Bay 1, teenager Jensen is being kept in an induced coma. CT scans confirm he has a brain injury after a car crash.
And he's had some antibiotics.
Yeah.
I got trauma to write them up.
A neurosurgeon has been called in to assess Jensen before his move from the ED.
Jensen now has an intracranial pressure monitor put in. He'll now go to intensive care. He will continue to be under an anaesthetic until we are sure that the pressures in his brain have come down and that they are remaining normal.
It's just teenage boys. They're scary creatures, aren't they?
Do you have boys or girls?
I've got 2 boys.
When we think about, I guess, what can happen, what tragedy can happen to people just going about their daily life, and it's really important to not let that overwhelm you, particularly when you're parenting your children, because you could go the way of wrapping them in cotton wool and not letting them do absolutely anything. But I also know from this job that bad things happen to good people all the time.
Jensen's large family is gathering at his bedside, including his 5 brothers and sisters and his mum and dad. All they can do now is wait to see how the teenager will wake up.
Seeing Jensen in the trauma ward, I just held his hand and just hang in there, mate, and just fight, keep fighting. We're here with you, we won't leave you. I would have took my own life at that particular time, traded places with Jensen just so he could live.
I think for a family that's waiting for some sign of how their loved one is going to recover, it is gruelling, is how I would describe it. Absolutely gruelling. It is physically exhausting. People don't sleep, they don't eat very well. And that is one of the really hard, tragic things about head injuries and brain injuries, that we don't know how severe somebody's injury is until we start to wean some of that anaesthetic medication and let the patient wake up on their own. And that is so difficult. I can't imagine what that must be like for, the loved ones of Jensen as well.
Michelle, tell me what you remember.
A daring attempt to perform a trail bike jump left Claney in hospital minus a piece of his tongue, which he bit off in the crash.
Oh, yeah, you have taken a piece too.
New party trick I got. Hello.
Oh, my gosh.
Dr. Michelle kept him in overnight in case he had a delayed reaction to being struck on the head. The next day, he was declared fit to go home and pursue his love of bikes and jokes.
Yeah?
But I bit off more than I can chew.
Oh, my gosh.
53-year-old Darren came to emergency with an ulcerated sore on his toe which wasn't healing, a complication of his diabetes.
An amputation of that toe at some point might be on the cards.
Unfortunately, doctors decided Darren's toe had to be amputated to stop the potentially fatal infection spreading.
Is she kicking?
27-week pregnant Jade was at risk of going into premature labour after a car accident.
Which one was good?
She became very anxious and agitated because of her fear of needles.
You're allowed to be scared.
Thankfully, Jade's CT scans of her baby were clear. After a night in hospital for observation, she was allowed to go home. Teenager Jensen was clinging to life after a serious car accident. Sarah delivering the news to his distraught dad that his son may never fully recover from a severe brain injury.
Please save our son. Just save our son, please. I need to.
Yeah.
Incredibly, just 12 weeks after the accident, Jensen is recovering faster than anyone could have hoped, including his mum, Kerry, and dad, Steve.
So worst case scenario is that he'd never walk, talk, be able to feed himself, or be able to do anything for himself. Well, my son, look at him. He's a miracle. He's a medical miracle.
Walking miracle.
Yeah.
I could not be more happier. I can walk, talk, I can remember things, and I can move everything, and I'm here.
But everything will improve over the next year.
Yeah, it's only going to get better from
keep
here.
improving.
In the weeks and months while he recovered in hospital, his 5 brothers and sisters, including JJ, never left his side.
I made it clear straight away I weren't going back to work until you walked out that hospital.
The whole family, including grandchildren, were in the waiting room, and we all took turns every 2 hours in rotating 2 people going in the room with Jensen. And that was until 10 o'clock at night. And then me, Dad and JJ stayed the night with him every night.
Collingwood, no way, I can't use that. Do you have a Tigers one?
We lost 3 parents in 1 year. I lost my mum and dad within a 7-month period. Kerry lost her dad. And we believe that they were the 3 angels, 100% the 3 angels that watched over Jensen when he had his accident, and definitely brought him back to us and helped his recovery. We firmly believe that he had angels watching over him, and they were the 3 grandparents, for sure.
I love you.
Love you too.
Thanks.
Oh.